That looks good. See you there, Jessica?
Checking on that it's working.
Welcome, everyone. We'll wait for a few more of our dear friends to join us on Instagram, Facebook, and of course Zoom, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome. A lot of amazing information to share with you today. Just give it 60 more seconds as we gather the troops. Okay, Jessica, are we ready? Welcome everyone to our Wednesday at 12 series on getting better at being you. And today it's all about speech, talking, the power of positive speech. This is not a talk on negative speech. That would be a talk on Lashon Hara, which is not today's discussion. Actually, whenever I talk about Lashon Hara, not whenever I talk Lashon Hara, which unfortunately I do as well, but whenever I talk about Lashon Hara, I always like to preempt it with one class to help people understand the power, the creative, psychological power that comes with, and potential that comes with speech, what we say, how we say it, because you're never going to understand negative speech unless you have an understanding of positive speech. Let's begin at the beginning. When I say the beginning, I really mean to begin at the beginning. Let's go to creation, because we know that God created the world. And we also know that it took God 6 days to create the world, and he rested on the seventh day. That we know as well. Shalom Gad Elbaz, welcome my friend. I'd sing for you, but I don't have a voice. But this is a good speech for you too. And we know that God created this world with tremendous power and koach. But there's something hidden, say the Kabbalists, in the first verse of the Bible, in the first pasuk of the Torah. It tells us not only that God did create the world, and not only when he created the world, but even how God created the world. We even know how God did it. What does that mean, how God did it? So if you look in the first verse of the Torah, the Kabbalists tell us there's an extra word. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heavens and earth. There's an extra word in that first pasuk, in that first verse, that actually, my friends, doesn't have a translation. Seemingly, it's not even needed in the verse. And the word is et. Aleph and Taf. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Taf is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which means that God created this world, to the Kabbalists, by using the letters Aleph through Taf, the Hebrew letters. And the word Vayomer appears 10 times in the description of creation. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, and God said, let there be light. Vayomer Elokim yehi rakia, let there be heavens. Vayomer Elokim adesher, let there be grass and animals and humans. So we see that God used letters and words to create the world. And then we know that he spoke out creation. It doesn't say that God massaged the world into being. It doesn't say he blew the world into being. That may be true. But the description that the Torah itself gives us is that God spoke. So here we have a crucial understanding of the power of speech. From the very beginning of creation, my friends, we know that speech has the power to create. And God used speech to make the entire world, universe, and everything. Now let's go to the next point, which is so crucial. And that is, we humans are made B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. And unlike any other creature in this world, we humans have been given the ability to talk. We are speakers. The Kabbalists call in a number of books that you see, a number of holy Jewish writings, that the humans are called the medaber, the speakers. Speech is what the power of speech, that form of communication, is unique to humans. Animals don't speak, they communicate. They communicate in very amazing and wondrous ways, but speech is a uniquely human ability. And we are called the speakers. And so if God spoke, we who are made in the image of God also have the power to speak, and our speech helps us create. And let's go a little bit further to the creation of mankind. And it says in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 7, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et Adam, and God formed mankind, Afar min ha'adam, from the dust of the earth. We are made from a physical dirt. Vayipach ba'apav, and God blew into the nostrils of man Nishmat Chaim. Nishmat Chaim, a soul of life. The breath that God put inside humans is what created us. So the metaphor to describe the creation of man is breath. God blew into the nostrils the breath of life. Vahi Adam lenefesh chaya, and man became a living being. So let's just understand this with a famous metaphor. It's not my metaphor. Have you ever seen a glass blower? I led a trip for about 40 students to Italy, and we went to an island called Burano. Was it Murano? It was actually two islands. Well, one of them is the glass blowing island. Beautiful over there. Very, very beautiful. And they had the glass blowing, which is still done the same way. It's a long tube. And the glass blower has a lump of very hot glass, which comes from sand at the end. And he blows into the tube, and it expands the glass into the beautiful, colorful creation. His breath has been blown into this glass and formed it. This is the metaphor of the Kabbalah. So too God, as it were, breathed himself into humans, and God's life force is inside every human being. And that's what makes us into a Nephesh Chaya. Onkelos, the very famous convert, probably the most famous converts in Jewish history, a Roman general, I believe. He translates the Torah into Aramaic, and he translates the words of a living being into a Ruach Mamalala, a speaking being. We humans are unique, that we have a life force, a creative life force inside us, which, say the Kabbalists, is exactly the same life force that God put inside us. And every time we speak, we are able to mimic God, who is the ultimate creator of the world. So for us, the Jewish people, and all humans, the power of speech is a creative power. It's an amazing power. It's a human power that gives us a life force. Let's go a little bit deeper, and let's go actually a little bit more mystical. Usually I leave this for nighttime talks, but we're here at this point, so I'll share with you a beautiful mystical idea. You're going to love this idea. It's not a fringe idea. This is written in a number of Sfarim, holy Jewish books, and it goes like this. Every human is made up of 5 souls. I know you thought you had 1, but you get 5 for the price of 1. Let's break this 5 down into 3 and 2. The 3 are the ones that are inside us at all times and are our life force. The lowest level of the soul is called the Nephesh. The Nephesh. As the Torah says, Nephesh Yadam. The soul, that is the base animalistic instinct that we have. The desire to eat, to drink, to sleep, to have relationships. That is the physical Nephesh, and we actually share that with animals. Animals also have a Nephesh. They also have a life force inside them. Animals can't speak. We'll see why in a second. So we humans have this ability to speak. We humans have the ability to have life and that comes from the Nephesh, and that's the lowest level. The next level up is called the Ruach. The Ruach. That's usually translated as spirit. But actually the word Ruach literally means wind. Ruach in modern Hebrew. If the Ruach is coming in, the wind is coming in as well. Let's go one level up, and then we'll analyze how these three interplay with each other. The next level is the level you've all heard about. That's called the Nishama. Now the word Nishama we use to refer to all 5 levels of soul inside mankind. But actually, it's one crucial level. It's that middle level, the Nishama. The word Nishama is related to the word Nishima, which means breath, the breath of life. Let's understand. The rabbis, Kabbalists call this the Naran. Naran is Nun, Resh, Nun. Nishama, Ruach, Nephesh. The Nephesh is the animalistic side, and that is in the blood. The Nishama is the very human. Only humans have that ability. And that instills us with free will and the desire to do good, and to create things. And that's found in the moach, in the brain. So the Nephesh is in the blood. The Nishama is in the brain. And these two are always struggling. The Nephesh wants to have a good time and enjoy itself, right? That's the spirit, to enjoy yourself and enjoy food and drink. And that's a good thing. The Nishama wants to increase goodness in the world. That comes from the brain, when the brain is controlling us. The middle level is called the Ruach. Where is that found? In the heart, in the emotions. We are emotional beings, not just rational beings. We have a Ruach, a spirit, and that's found in the heart. The power of speech that we're talking about today is located, say the Kabbalists, like Kabbalah, in the Ruach. That's why the word is wind. What is speech? It is wind. It is hot air that is coming out as our vocal cords vibrate and the air comes out and hits your eardrum. So when the Nishama and Nephesh battle it out, it actually comes out in the Ruach, in the speech, which is found in the heart. So really, when we're talking about speech, we're talking about the power of the heart to express itself. The power of the heart to express itself comes from speech. Let's recap everything we said. We said some very deep ideas, and then we'll make it very, very practical. We said that we are made up of 5 souls. Lowest is the Nephesh, the desire to be physical, like an animal, which is good. We have animalistic instincts. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to drink, we have to stay alive, we have to recreate. But then we have the Nishama, found in the brain, and that is the desire to improve the world, right? That is the soul force that we have, the Nishima, the breath of life that we bring into the world. But then we have this middle level of these bottom 3 called the Ruach. And the Ruach is how we create things in this world. And every creation in this world always comes from speech. Every good thing that we create comes from the power of speech. Ultimately, we can also say that every destruction that happens in this world of relationships, of friendships, of countries, of wars, always involves negative speech. It must be. They're 2 sides of the same coin. If speech comes from the heart, from the Ruach, which is located in the heart, then it must be, my friends, that the creative power must have the ability to have destructive power. And that's why every argument, every broken family, whatever it is, must always, my friends, must always be found in the ability to speak. So that's where we are right now. And what we're really saying is that speech has the power to create worlds. If God used speech to create this world, everything we say, every word that comes out of our mouths has the power to create and to build. When I say build, I don't just mean physical things in the world. I mean other people. Because really, what are we humans? We humans are in the business of building ourselves and building other people up. That is what we are trying to do. Everything that we are as humans is there to create. I'll give you just a couple of, actually, it's going to sound unusual, but halachic realities where we see, according to Jewish law, we are actually using the power of speech to create. I have had the honor and pleasure of performing, I don't know at this point, well over 100 weddings. I just performed a wedding on Sunday. It was a Corona wedding. It happened outdoors in a backyard with 30, 40 people. It was very, very beautiful. The fact that it was so small didn't take away from the joy of the Chatan and Kala, of the bride and groom, even one bit. Don't worry, after the virus goes away, please God, they'll have a big party. At what point are a man and woman married? At what point are the Chatan and Kala, the bride and groom, at what point are they actually married according to Jewish law? So people don't realize this. People think it's the party. People think it's the chuppah. These are important things. But actually, there's one point where the union between the bride and groom actually kicks in. And that is, as soon as the groom says to the bride, Harei at mekudeshet li b'tabat zu kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. Behold, you are consecrated to me with this ring, according to the law of Moses and Israel. And there's two witnesses standing under the chuppah. He says those words. He puts the ring on as a gesture of giving. At that point, they're married. Speech has created this union. It's the power of speech that actually has formed this union. We learn from this a very, very important point. If speech creates this new reality that we call the Jewish family, that starts with the Chatan and Kala, the bride and groom, under the chuppah, you know what's going to keep them together? You know the power that they're going to have for the rest of their lives to build their families, build their relationship. And actually, we're going to learn from this, all relationships, it's going to be speech. Speech is the thing that binds us one to another. If you want to know the theme that runs through this entire course, we've spoken about for the past month or so, and we'll speak about for the duration of the summer, when it comes to being better at being you, speech is number one. There is always room for improvement. I don't just mean lashon hara, bad speech. You know, I don't want to say it's a shame, but one of the focuses which I always had when I was growing up in yeshiva, right? They always told us, don't speak badly, don't talk bad, don't speak gossip. It's all true. But I think the focus in the Jewish educational establishment is on the wrong side. What we should be focusing on is positive speech, the tremendous creative power that God has put in every human to use the power of speech for the good. Everything we say can build others. We've spoken before how the expression on your face communicates and gives other people strength and the ability to have a good day, right? We quoted the famous Mishnah, you have to accept and greet every person with a happy smile. That is halakha, that is Jewish law. When you see someone, you don't feel so good, but why should you ruin their day with your bad mood? Hey, how are you? Smile lifts them up. You know what else you're expected to do? You have to give them good speech. Because when you talk well to another person and you say good things, and by the way, people think to themselves, I've heard this a lot. I know it's a mistake. It's a big mistake, but I've heard this a lot. People say, I heard, Rabbi, you shouldn't compliment a person. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. There is no basis for this in Jewish law. What you're not meant to do is meant to compliment somebody to someone else who you know doesn't like them. Because as soon as you compliment them, what are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, you like that person? Isn't that good? I'll tell you what they're all about. They're this, and she's terrible, and he's bad, and they're going to speak badly. But that's the limited case. It is a mitzvah, a positive mitzvah, to compliment people to their faces and say, you know, you're so wonderful. I love you so much. Thank you for helping me. You're such a good person. You're so kind. And it's a mitzvah, a big mitzvah, to compliment people to other people. Maybe you shouldn't do it to their enemies, like we said, because they'll end up saying bad things. But most people don't have enemies. Most people, I like to think, have good friends. And so, therefore, you're expected to use your words well and to communicate live, and what you say is going to build people up. We all can think of stories. I can think of many stories from my childhood where one person said one small thing to me, one small thing, and said, you're so good at doing that. I've had teachers who said, that's fabulous. What a wonderful thing to say. And those few words, those one or two words have stayed with me my entire life. If God created the world with 10 statements, can you imagine what saying 3 or 4 positive statements can create in another person? Can you imagine the power, the tremendous power that we have? And so when we speak to each other under the chuppah, and we say, you're consecrated to me, you are kadosh to me, you are separate, you are holy to me, those words create an entire new reality that we call marriage. And all of our relationship is based upon what we say. Now, there's room for mistakes. We understand that. And we're going to say things. But one of the most powerful words that we have, I was talking to a therapist who lives fairly close to me. She works here in the Jewish community, and she is packed day and night. And I was talking to her, and I said, give me one piece of advice when it comes to building up children. What is the best thing you can say to your kids? What's the best thing you can say to your kids? And I was expecting to really make them into great children. And I was expecting her to say you should encourage them, and you should tell them how much you love them, and all the stuff that we kind of know, which we try to do as often as we can, give them positive reinforcement. I'll tell you what she said to me. And she's pretty famous here in my community. And she's a very, very wonderful woman as well. And a good parent to boot. She said, the best word you can say to your children to help them have a good, healthy, emotional upbringing is no. I believe there's a book called The Power of No. I've heard this. But that's what she told me. And she got this from her life experience. Speech is there to lift people up, but it's also there to restrict, to hold back, to say, I've had enough. You can say this, but you can't say that. You can do this, but you can't do that. Speech allows us to frame our relationships. What we say, how we say it, isn't just there to give people tremendous life force, which it does. It's all there to say, it's a mitzvah. And I think I mentioned this before when we spoke about revenge and bearing a grudge, but I'll say it again, if you don't mind. Let's say someone upsets you. Let's say they upset you, they offend you. A friend of yours, someone you love. Did you know it's a mitzvah according to the Rambam? And he codifies this in the Mishnah Torah, in one of his key books, that if someone upsets you, you shouldn't just turn the other cheek. That's not a Jewish concept. You're meant to take them aside privately, and you're meant to speak to them and say, no, don't talk to me that way. You upset me. You've hurt me. And I want you to apologize for what you did. And if that person says sorry, you should accept their apology. If not the first time, the second time. If not the second time, hopefully by the third time. So speech is not just there to lift people up and to build. It's also there to create. And when you create things, vayetzer Adam, God formed man. There's different ways to form things. Listen very carefully. This is a beautiful idea. If you've ever seen a statue, right? A beautiful marble statue in a museum somewhere. That statue could have been made in two ways. Way number one is that the sculptor has added to it and built it up by adding more clay or more material, more wood, whatever it is, to build and build and build. That's one way that you can create. But there's another way. And that is to take a big lump. For example, Moses took a big lump of gold and he formed the menorah. He didn't add the gold piece by piece. He formed it. He chiseled it out until it took the form of the menorah. And so there's two ways to build, to create. One is to build up, and the other is to form, to etch out. Speech has both potentials. You can build people up by adding one, like a brick layer, one after another, after another, after another. But there's another way to form, another way to build our relationships, and that is to have a big lump of gold or silver or clay and we start to mush and head out and say, no, not over there, and no, not over there. So speech has the same power to build each other up, and sometimes we have to use our speech to carve out. And we have to say things that maybe are not so comfortable for other people to hear. And we have to hear things that maybe aren't so comfortable to hear. Because speech builds relationships. You know, when I talk to a cow, I'm not having a conversation. I say things, and the cow just carries on in its, bovine tranquility, eating grass, whatever it is. But when we talk to two people with basically two lumps of meat, what is really speaking over here? What's speaking is one neshama speaking to another neshama, one soul speaking to another soul. And soul is what we're trying to build and create. And so we can build each other's souls up with positive speech, which can come in two forms. Telling people how much we love them and how special and how proud we are. Right? Today's day and age, 2020, we have to tell our children 20 times a day how proud I am of you, how much I love you. Me, I'll be honest, I'm not such a great parent, but that's one thing I'm good at. Hug, kiss, tell them how much I love them, and hope the rest kind of falls together. The rest I'll leave to Hashem. All right? We're in a partnership with God. But there's another way. There are times in our relationships where speech has to be good, but it has to create in terms of the taking away the clay or the gold. It has to be formed. It has to be no. Don't talk to me that way. Don't do it that way. Speech as a creative power must take both forms. That is the power of speech that we have been endowed with. Just a few more minutes. There is also another area to speech. And this occurs in Jewish law a number of times, a number of places. Most of us aren't aware of it, but it's called a neder. A neder is one form of promise. Now you may have heard the expression bli neder. Bli means without a neder. Because what you say, you must do. What comes out of your mouth, for example, if a person says, I'm going to give tzedakah, I'm going to give charity, and I'm going to give $100 to whatever. Or a person says, I will see you tomorrow at 12. Are you sure? Yeah, I promise you, I will be there. I'll be available at 12. I'll be there. And you don't turn up, you don't give the money. You've broken a neder. This is a terrible, terrible thing. We're told that this is it's a sin. Simple as that. We know on Yom Kippur, before we start to do Teshuvah, many communities have the custom to say, Kol Nidrei, all of the Nidarim, all the promises that I made to you, that I made to God, which I didn't fulfill to that organization, whatever it is, I'm sorry. I want to wipe it away. Because the power of speech has another potential, and that is to create things in the future. And the form is called making promises. And when we make promises, which is a big thing to do, and by the way, that's why it's a custom not to say, I swear. When we were kids, we'd say, I swear it's true. We don't do that. We never say that. It's called make a shavua. In the old days, in times of the Talmud and the Torah, people used to put their hand onto a Bible. They still do, actually. They put their hand on a Bible and they say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I was actually in a court of law as a defendant, right? Someone had stolen my wallet, and I was in a court of law, and I had to go and testify. And the assistant DA told me to put my hand on a Bible, and I said, I can't swear on the Bible as a Jew, as a religious Jew. I affirm. And when Ambassador Friedman was sworn in, right, to the ambassador of Israel by Pence, Vice President Pence, you'll see in the video, he says, I affirm. We don't swear, because swearing is a big, big thing. When you make a promise, you must do it. And therefore, you have to make sure you don't invoke God's name. It's actually one of the 10 commandments. We don't invoke God's name. What is my point in a practical day-to-day? Even when you promise things to other people, you have to be very, very careful. The power of speech when it comes to building a relationship is be careful what you promise and to whom. Because if you do it and you say it, it must happen. And therefore you'll say, I'll try to be there, or I'll try to do that. I'll try to do and create whatever I promise to do. based upon everything I said, let's go to one more level. And let's just recap for 30 seconds. We said that God used speech to create the world. It says Vayomer 10 times in creation. So God spoke every single nuance of creation. He spoke and there was life force. He spoke and there was a universe. He spoke and there was water and heavens and animals and grass and flowers and humans. What does it mean God speak? God doesn't speak. Whatever that means for God, it means for us too. Because we are made in the image of God. And if God speaks and creates, we now know that this unique human faculty of speech has the power to create and build as well. And so we are called the speaking beings. That is what separates, that's what differentiates us from the other creatures. And every argument and every war in world history has always involved negative speech. So let's talk about that for 1 second. Oh, and by the way, just so we recap, marriage relationship is going to be based upon positive speech. When I say positive, I don't just mean speech, you're fantastic, you're lovely, I'm beautiful, I love you. That's all good, that's amazing. But also, no, don't say that, don't do that. Speech has the power to create, but also to form as well. The power of no. Finally, and this is its own talk, but I want to just mention it now on the coattails of what we just said. And it goes like this. There is also a negative speech. Now, if positive speech builds and creates and comes from a deep level of the Nishama called the Ruach, which is found in the heart, therefore negative speech can break other people's hearts as well. Now, had I started my speech with those words, it wouldn't have made much sense. But now you've got to take this literally. You've got to take this literally. You can literally break another person's heart with negative speech. Negative speech is actually a form of ritzicha, which means murder. You know, when we were kids, you may have heard the expression, right? Sticks and stones may break bones, but words can never hurt me. It's the exact opposite. Sticks and stones can break bones, but bones can heal. But words can destroy other people. As a spiritual being, a person who is aware of the neshama of their soul, aware of other people's neshamot, you cannot speak bad to other people because you are breaking their heart literally. You can kill them. Speech has the power to break hearts because that's where the power of speech is coming from. Actually, the highest level of speech actually is our communication with God. Makes sense, yeah? Speak to each other, build each other up. So therefore, the highest speech is speaking to God. What's that? Tefillah. Prayer, say the rabbis, comes from the highest realm of the neshama, the highest realm of the soul, because you're speaking to God. And that is heart. When you talk to God, you're not just talking with your brain, you're talking with your ruach, with your heart. And when you talk to each other, as we said, it's two souls speaking to each other. It's actually two hearts speaking to each other. We are talking heart to heart. And then if that speech is negative, if you tell people how much you hate them and you destroy them with your speech, you are literally breaking their hearts. And that is a form of death. Now, I have a lot more to say on Lashon Hara, how it works, what we say, how we say it, but that's going to be another talk, God willing. I want to focus on the positive, which I want to just finish off with today. And so, the highest level of communication that we humans have been endowed with, which will allow us to become better at being ourselves, is to improve our speech. One last thing. We said, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. We're expected to love other people like we love ourselves. That means, and this is very, very important, please hear these words. We've mentioned there is an inner voice. There is constantly an inner voice. We are speaking to ourselves. There's a voice in our heads saying, you shouldn't do this, you're not good enough to do that. Speech isn't just what we say to others. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You have to speak well of yourselves. And I'm as guilty. How often do I say, oh, I'm such an idiot, I'm so foolish, and even if I don't say it, I think to myself, I'm not good enough, how can I do it? Low self-esteem is actually reflexive speech that stays in our heads. And that is forbidden. Because you have to love others like you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, you're never going to love anybody else. And how does self-love begin? It begins with your own speech that you do inside your mind to yourself. Your own self-talk, if you love. Your own soul talk, however you want to define it. And so when we speak to ourselves, even if it doesn't come out of our mouths, because usually we don't speak to ourselves loudly, okay? If we do, we're cuckoo, especially if we answer. But the inner voice that is inside us has the ability to build us as well. And so therefore, you are expected, and this is a challenge, a bigger challenge today than ever before, for that inner voice to always speak well to yourself. So you know what? And if that means looking in the mirror and saying, you're fantastic, you're amazing, you're great. And if you're embarrassed to say it out loud, then think it to yourself. You know what? I'm not that bad. I'm a good person. I've done a lot of good things. Building our self-esteem actually comes from talking our inner dialogue, that inner voice that is talking to ourselves. Become aware of your inner speech, because that is going to help make or break your own heart. That is going to help make or break your own self-esteem. And as we said, the mitzvah to have good self-esteem is a Torah mitzvah, v'yahavta l'recha kamocha. Love others like you love yourself. Thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you've gained much from this. Thank you, Jessica, for putting this together. God willing, we'll be back next Wednesday at 12 o'clock for more adventures in becoming better at being you. Have a great, beautiful, successful, loving week. Blessings and success to you all. Shalom.